Thank you very much, gentlemen. Is this on or off? Now you're out of luck, it's on. Thank you both for that very generous introduction. Let me not only acknowledge my appreciation to you, but I'm very pleased to see in the first row in the audience here, Judge Hans-Peter Kaul, who addressed a group in Berlin not long ago on similar themes, and who has been an outstanding representative of your country in the attempt to create a more peaceful and humane world through an international criminal court, including one which would hold accountable those leaders who are responsible for the crime of aggression. Now, as I went around here, as you know, I tried to find out from you what it is that you wanted me to talk about. Most of you said you wanted to talk about my personal stories. Some of you said they were only interested in the girl next to whom they were sitting. Some of you were more philosophical and wanted to know about feelings of guilt, not only among the criminals, but also among the general public, philosophical questions, and so on. And what the other gentleman told you I'm going to talk about, I have no idea, but I heard most of it. And I will try to speak slowly so that you get an exercise in English at the same time. Pardon me, wenn ich nicht Deutsch spreche, aber ich habe Deutsch nie studiert. Und deswegen bin ich ein bisschen scheu und ich traue mich nicht, Deutsch zu sprechen. Aber Sie können Ihre Fragen auf Deutsch stellen, wenn Sie wollen. Ich höre auch so ein Ohr hier ist 91 Jahre alt, hört nicht so gut. Und wenn ich will nicht antworten, ich werde sagen, ich verstehe das nicht. So let me begin with what has been indicated should be the beginning. I have about 30 or 40 minutes or something like that. And I'll try to solve all the problems in the world, but nothing else. And I will begin with what you asked me to talk about, some personal experiences. What does it mean to you? Where do we stand today? And where do we go in the future? The IWC has co-opted the nice headings of Vergangenheit and Ergebnisse, or I don't know what, and Zukunft, and all that. And I'll try to put it all in one framework, because I see that most of you are very young. Everybody compared to me is very young. And I will try to give you a solution to all your problems by telling you what kind of a world do we live in, what can you do about it, and where are we going. Well, let me begin at the beginning. I gather that in the introductory statements, it was indicated to you that I was a refugee to the United States, came as an infant child from Transylvania. Now, all you know about Dracula, and I've explained that he's my uncle on my mother's side, otherwise they can't identify who I'm connected to. But I had an early beginning in the meaning of nationality. My sister was born in the same house I was, a year and a half earlier. She was a Hungarian. I was born in the same house a year later. I'm a Romanian. So neither of us cared much for which nationality was put onto our passport when we got out of the country, as quickly as we could. And I was raised in poverty in New York. America was a great country, great opportunities for me. I consider myself a loyal, patriotic American citizen, eternally grateful for what I was able to do in the United States. And that's some of the background for some of my comments. I am a believer, as was a great American patriot, Tom Paine, that to be a patriot is not to say my country right or wrong. We saw what happened in Germany with that philosophy. But to say I will support my country when it's right, and when it's wrong, I will try to set it right. And so I'm not to be interpreted as being anti-American or anti-anything. I am against anything which is inhumane and cruel and mean and rotten, and I do my best to diminish it or decrease it or eliminate it if possible. Now, how does one go about, with that kind of a background, to set about to save the world? Well, it's easy. I'll give you a few examples. First of all, we had a little problem. It originated here in Berlin. It was a government trying to take over the world. I didn't like that much, particularly since I was on the target list, number one. So the first thing to do is to try to end war making, end the war itself. I enlisted in the American Army. By that time, I had was an honor graduate of the Harvard Law School, where I had done research for one of my professors, Professor Sheldon Gluck, former German, on war crimes. He had written a book. As some of you are students here, I did the research. I read every book in the Harvard Law Library in English or in French about the attempts after the First World War to stop war making, all the background from the Peloponnesian Wars. I wasn't there at the time, but I read it all about that. And so being a great expert on war crimes, the U.S. Army immediately recognized my talent, and they made me a private in the artillery. I'm just testing your English. So with that auspicious beginning, it didn't take long, I was promoted to corporal. Well, I could think of Napoleon. I could also think of Hitler, who began as corporals. It took me a little bit longer. I landed on the beaches of Normandy. I fought in every battle. I crossed the Rhine on a pontoon bridge. I was in a battle to liberate the American 101st Airborne Division when they were trapped by the Germans in Bastogne at the last battle of the war. And when I got out, I was given an honorable discharge, which is very dubious, I thought, very generous. And I was also given 5 battle stars. And I said, what is that for? I was hiding behind a truck most of the time. And they said, well, you were in all those battles, and you didn't get killed, and you didn't get wounded. I said, well, I like that idea. Well, anyway, in general, my Army career, it was not something I particularly enjoyed. Matter of fact, I didn't like it at all. However, the war was over, and I wanted to go home. But there were certain experiences which I had in Germany before I could go home, which relates to our topics here today, and so I'd like to describe them, but I don't want to go into too much details for several reasons. First of all, I can't. They are flashbacks. And secondly, by this time you should know that concentration camps are horrible things. I was transferred out of the artillery to General Patton's headquarters. When we reached Germany, there we began to encounter war crimes. Reports came in to Patton's headquarters to set up a war crimes branch to deal with the atrocities which were being reported back to people like Professor Sheldon Gluck in New York and the Pentagon and Washington, and the President of the United States and the leaders of the British, the French, and the Russians promised to warn Hitler that he would be held, and the Germans, that they would be held accountable for all of the atrocities which were being committed. Now, the Army had no experience really in dealing with crimes against humanity, with genocide, with aggression, certainly not. So they found me, and I was transferred out of the artillery, and I showed up at a colonel's office in Patton's headquarters, and he said, we've been instructed to set up a war crimes branch. What's a war crime? That's the truth. Had no idea.